Hi, this is Debbie, and today I'm taking a look at the new SSS Stamp January card kit and making a non-holiday winter card from the kit contents. So let's jump straight into the kit. First up is the large 6x8 stamp set Snow Fun. Although most of our holiday crafting is likely getting done, there is still the rest of the winter to enjoy sending cards out, and of course those thank you cards for gifts received. Next in the kit are 2 packs of pom-poms and a spool of thread. Pom-poms add so much texture and fun, and I love to see them on cards. Next there's a twirling ice skater die. I think this would look lovely for a little girl's birthday card. Also in the kit are 3 sturdy black tags with hole reinforcers in a kind of rose gold colour. There's an A2 schoolhouse red envelope with self-sealing strip. And then there's pattern paper from the kit. This paper is from Echo Park Celebrate Winter 6x6 paper pad. And the same way as the stamp set, there is the winter theme without obvious reference to the holidays, such as Santa hats or anything. Now here's an exciting addition to this kit. This is the brand new, only just released Custom Blend Distress Oxide ink pad. With this ink pad you can create your own ink pad using Distress Oxide re-inkers. Moving on, and there's the lollipop that my kids always enjoy seeing in the kits. And then there's the Sakura Classic White Jelly Roll Pen in size 05. A white gel pen, I'd say, is an essential item in my crafting kit. There's also a bottle of glossy accents in the kit, a great all-round very firm glue, and of course when added on top of things gives that all-important glossy shine. Finally there's a cardstock in the kit, and this month we have SSS Stamp Sturdy £120 white card, and in the £100 weight there's their Surf Blue and Island Blue card. If you've not seen the contents of one of these kits before, I hope you found this a useful peek inside one. There are a couple of options to get hold of these kits. You can either subscribe to them monthly and get a discount for doing that, or you can buy the kit as a one-off, or equally, if there's 1 or 2 things that catch your eye, then many of these items are available separately. Okay, so let's move on to making a card with this kit. To start, I did make a silly mistake and reach for some pre-cut white card I have next to me on my craft desk, but in actual fact the kit has a sheet of white card included, so I could have used that. So I placed a piece of Neenah Solar White card in the Mini Misty and arranged 2 of the cute snowman images from the Snow Fun kit stamp set. I ink the stamps with SSS Stamp Intense Black ink. I am using this particular ink as it's marker friendly, and I intend colouring the snowmen with Copic Markers. I got a good first impression, but did ink and stamp again to get a really good black outline. Then I removed the card from the Misty and replaced it with a piece of Inkadinkado masking paper. I stamped the images onto the masking paper and then fussy cut them out with scissors. When I'm cutting a mask out, I cut through the black outline of the stamped image. This is so that when I add the mask to the card and then ink blend over the top, that I get the ink blending right up to the black outline of the image. If you cut them out on the outside edge of the line, it can get hard to get the ink right up to the edge and you can be left with a white halo around your images. I took another piece of Inkadinkado masking paper and sketched out a pencil line for a snowy hill. I trimmed this out with scissors and then laid the mask in place over the snowmen. And now I'm ready to start ink blending a background. I prefer to do the background first and then colour afterwards, just in case I mess up. For the ink blending, I'm going to use for the first time these Picket blender brush set. There are 10 brushes in the set, which range from a teeny tiny brush for getting into small nooks and crannies, right up to a big mummer of a brush for large areas. Taking a closer look at one of the brushes, and I have to say the bristles are like touching velvet. The head of the brush is packed tight with super soft bristle, and I'm excited to see how these work for blending. The black plastic handles of these brushes are at an angle to the head of the brush, like a hairbrush, rather than coming from above like an old-fashioned shaving brush. I've picked out 2 colours of Distress Oxide ink for the background, Stormy Sky and Black Soot. I used these on a card recently and love the soft muted blue of the Stormy Sky with the black soot coming in from the edges to form a vignette. I loaded the blender brush with ink and gently brought it over the sides of the card while moving the brush in circles with a light hand. I prefer to start with a light application and then build up, and I also find I get a smoother blend this way. It's easy to create a smooth blend with Distress Oxides, but I do think the velvet nature of these Picket brushes made it even smoother, and I was really happy with the end result. So having got the initial layer Stormy Sky down and then the vignette of Black Soot, I then got the biggest brush out and lightly blended with Stormy Sky again to get a smooth transition from one colour to the next. To finish off this background, I used my favourite Perfect Pearl solution. This is a scoop of Perfect Pearls in a mini mister and then topped up with water, given a good shake, and then I used the tube from inside to splatter liberally with the sparkly mixture. Before the wet Perfect Pearl solution could soak through the masks too much, I quickly removed them to reveal the crisp, sharp lines of the snowy hill, and then the snowmen too, untouched by the background and ready for colouring. Distress oxides are semi-opaque, and so a couple of the black lines I'd not masked needed a little touch-up with a black pen. And now we're ready for colouring, and I'm going to colour this scene with Copic Markers. I placed the lids of the markers to the side so that you can see what I used. Although snowmen are white, I find it brings them to life to add shading, and for this I like to use muted shades in the BV colourway. My Copic colouring skills are limited. I use a simple method of starting with a light colour, adding some deeper shades, and then blending out with a light colour again. I'll turn on some music in a moment so that you can enjoy the colouring process in full. I think the only thing that needs further explanation is that I did have some of the colours bleeding outside of the lines when using the green and pink markers. It's been a while since I pulled out my markers, and I'd forgotten that it's helpful to have a piece of card underneath your project to soak up excess marker when you're blending small areas. However, all is not lost when this happens. I either colour over the bleed with the colours from that section, or when the bleed was onto the white of the snowman, I used a zero marker to push the colour back where it belonged. The zero marker is described as a blender, but in actual fact I think a better description is an eraser. It bleaches out the colour and is so helpful in fixing mistakes or blending the palest colours out to the white of the card. Okay, so I'll turn the music on now and I'll be back to finish this card shortly. my markers out for a change, and I hope you enjoyed seeing the full colouring process, including fixing those bleeds. My final touch was to mute the green down slightly with a grey marker. I was finding the green to be just a bit bright for the other colours. I used the Jelly Roll white gel pen to add some polka dots to the blue scarf. I'm more used to a Uniball white gel pen, which I think must be a slightly thicker nib. I found this pen was great for the fine details of adding a knit pattern to the snowman's jumper, but a little lacking in ink for the polka dots to get a really opaque white dot. With the colouring now complete, I die cut the panel with a wonky rectangle die to get that lovely stitched edge detail, and then placed the payout panel back in the Mini Misty and lined up a sentiment from the Snow Fun stamp set. I used a T-square ruler to ensure I had it on straight, and then treated the card with an anti-static powder bag, stamped a couple of times in clear embossing ink from SSS Stamp to get a good impression, and then sprinkled with white embossing powder from SSS Stamp and heat set. I wanted to add the fun addition of some of those pom-poms, so I took a piece of the spool of the white thread and the pack of white Darice pom-poms and threaded a few of the pom-poms onto the thread. I then secured the thread on the back of the panel with tape. I added foam adhesive to the back of the panel and added it to a white card base. Then I pulled out the Girl's Best Friend sequin pack and chose the lovely large semi-opaque white sequins and a few smaller sparkly clear sequins and added a few to the card and kept them in place with Gina K Connect glue. As a final touch, I tied a double bow from white twine and adhered that with Gina K Connect glue in the top corner. And that completes this card using the new January card kit from SSS Stamp, along with my first try with the Picket Fence blender brush set, and then pulling out my Copic markers for a nice change. I'll leave links in the YouTube description below to the products that I've used today, as well as a link to the coordinating blog post over at limedodesign.com. I want to thank you for joining me today, and if you've enjoyed this tutorial, I'd be delighted if you subscribe to this channel. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.